when I found those groups on Facebook, right? Those nostalgia groups. You are a member, of course. Uh, do you know why those groups were formed?
I'll use an acronym of yesteryears. It's called OBA, right? OBA stands for Old Boys Association,
Oh
or
yeah,
what
yeah. I
is
know those things. Yeah, I've heard of it.
what is a nice name is now Alumni
Alumni.
and
Yeah.
all that. Um, I think one of the things which we found out, in fact, myself, I found out that I asked this question: why isn't there an Old Boys Association alumni for Dunearn Tech? And when I pursued that subject further, having more encouragement from other students that was also longing for that existing a body that could provide for us to meet and all that. I think those days we were just looking for a place where we could assemble, a place that could a common place that we could meet and convenient. I found that my school sadly had Chinese speaking students. Apparently, they had a communist influence and background. And because of that, for many years, my school was not allowed to form an alumni. So this alumni that you see on the Facebook, there are three of them. I think the oldest of them was DSTS, Dunearn Secondary Technical School. This was the oldest, and they were formed from memory, I think, sometime in the late 70s. So for many years, the final year students from batch 1 in 67, that was the year I left, right up till the 70s. There were informal gatherings, maybe like 2 or 3 students coming together from a class, but that was it. I mean, the absence of a specific publicized event. And I think this alumni provides opportunities for old boys to get together to encourage one on in the technical education or whatever pursuit of area of business or retirement state of life that we are in.
Right.
So
Just as an aside, did you know any of your classmates or schoolmates who were influenced by, Marxism, Maoism in those days?
there were 1 or 2 of them. I think those days they were quite careful in sharing their political mindsets. Least of all, I wasn't quite interested and ready for any of that. But I remember that there was one that was a bit outspoken, and often the teacher, he'll be a red marker for all the teachers in the school. So they'll all be watching out for him. Either by the way the questions are phrased or what's going to become out of that question or discussion. But other than that, I would say, anyway, this was a MOE decision, which I subsequently found out. I think the main thing was really to encourage the camaraderie that has been formed through the years.
Yeah.
And sadly, I missed out a lot of those interactions between fellow students and teachers because I was really, as I shared before, I was really engaged in learning a skill for myself and to make it out on in public so that I can earn a living for myself and be able to contribute to my parents and a family. Not forgetting that I have 7 other older siblings that I have, and they had, in one way or another, contribute to my growing up years. So yeah, it was something that was very special.
Where the most of your friends, your closer friends from Dunearn Tech, where did they go? Any of them were in the same field, the same industry?
There were just a handful, maybe like two or three, that ended up in the specific area of precision engineering. Many of them have actually moved on to different areas of their own pursuits and interests.
Right.
If I may just get back to the subject of Dunearn Technical School, in my specific class, 4A in 1967, that was the final year, there was only a handful of students left, handful of about 30 something students. We had lost, Dunearn Technical had lost 10 students sometime in the 1965 or 66, I think. These were students that were quite clear in their minds what they were aiming for. They were very science subject influenced. They were looking to be able to do all the science subjects, the A Mats and all that, which Dunearn as a new school did not offer or could not offer. So as a result of that, I think these students, 10 of them, I think 6 of them went to Tanjung Katong Technical School, and 4 of them went to Queenstown Technical. Again, with this, student movements, we were out of touch. And during those days, not just me, I think most of us were just basically doing our own pursuits, and we were not encouraged to keep contact with us. I think one of the unifying activities was the Scouts movement, either the Scouts or cadets, because that involves an annual camp, right? So during that camp, there will be a greater level of bonding. There will be campfires throughout the school year. There will be occasions where students will get to know one another and visit one another, each other's home um, during those years. Yeah.
Right. I just want to ask you, so far in the Facebook groups, there are 3 of them, I think. Um, what have you guys been writing about? What have you guys been posting about?
It's quite interesting. It's basically maybe for myself, even my involvement in Facebook, it came about possibly a more active manner, maybe in the last 3 years. I recognize an absence of a lot of history for the school. So what I did was getting onto the National Archives, and also from the National Library on the e-resources. I dug into the history, extracted photos, information about the school, and used that as a billboard so that students from this group could also read of what has happened during those years. I sense a greater interest to touch base with our historical roots, and many, I think there are with growing numbers as we all grow on in years, ability to revisit all these years that the archives or information that was missing. So yeah, it would. I guess the other part of it was really like a notice board, when it's getting together. Maybe there was a key teacher. There are 2 key people from our school that is active today. One is the Olympian C. Kunalan. He was a sprinter. He's still active. former teacher in the school as well. Um, so he's one of the key guys that we would try and make it for the event because he's there. We just want to honor and respect our teachers. The other person is the Member of Parliament Maliki Osman, I believe.
Oh, he
He
was
was an
also alumni.
ex-student of
Oh,
Dunearn
okay.
Technical. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
But he became a
Um,
sociologist.
yeah,
Social
I
work. I mean,
don't know.
social work. Sorry. Then he got a
Yeah.
PhD in social work. Yeah.
Oh, really? Huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's interesting to read about our Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong's encouragement some years ago through the public service to pay it forward. It's not pay it back, but it's pay it forward. This whole idea of doing something that will benefit the future generations comes from the film called Pay It Forward. Yeah, it's, it's a very interesting, moving movie that talks about how little things that we do can pay it forward for our future generations. I mean, all this that we're talking about, the green economy, is really about paying it forward.
Right. Um, I mean, I think Singapore does such a bad job, right, of remembering our schools. Many of our schools were gone long ago, especially the primary schools. And MOE is so much concerned with the future policies and continuing to grow the education sector that much of this past is not properly documented. Especially those things that matter to the alumni, right? I mean, the students who went through those years are not so much concerned about what were the main policies or how much economic development came out of that, but what the experience mattered to them and the friendships, the teachers, the things that they learned, actually learned, and not just their grades. And this is even worsened by the merger of schools in recent years. So, for example, your school, Dunearn Tech, merged with um, wait, it became Greenwich Secondary. Is that right? First, and
Yes.
then later on went through another merger. Greenwich went through another merger with Fajar Secondary to become what it is today. No, wait, sorry. Am I? I think I got this wrong, right?
Fajar first.
Uh, sorry. So Dunearn Secondary Tech, uh, was it renamed or did it keep the name?
No. The name was the name is gone now.
Right.
I'm told that it has merged with it became Fajar.
Yeah.
Dunearn Secondary became Fajar, and then later on became Greenwich.
Right. So Dunearn Sec kept its name until it merged with Fajar Secondary to become Fajar, right?
That's correct.
And
That's
then
correct.
This school was subsequently renamed Greenwich. Is that
That's
right?
correct.
I mean, I
That's
don't
right.
even get it. I mean, I'm looking at the Google website now, and that's so badly written. And if I go back further down the page, right, of this website, it gives a short history about Greenwich, that is established in 1964 as Dunearn Technical School, which is such a
Yeah.
weird way to trace the history of the school. That the school actually should the history should be in when the school was named that way. It doesn't really go back to Dunearn Secondary, which also means that Dunearn Secondary doesn't have its own official history, right? Because its history is now the history of Greenwich. So there's a little blurb there on the origins of Dunearn Secondary. It was opened by DPM Toh Chin Chai in 1965. And this was because of the emphasis on technical education. It had some of the best technical facilities available at the time. That's what the website says. And it was on a small hill, this Hillcrest, between Linden and Hillcrest Road. And then 1992, it moved to a new place in Bukit Panjang. So I think then this is probably going to allow NJC to move into its new site on the hill, which will happen a few years later when by the time I joined the school as a teacher, I had already moved there. And therefore, Dunearn then suffered a misnomer in name, right? It is no longer in Dunearn, but it's in Bukit Panjang, and that's why the name Greenridge came about. So, and then there's a lot more about Fajar and a whole potch of schools involved in this history, but there's nothing really on what the school means to the students, that pioneer technical generation who went through it, including yourself. So, Charles, do you have any thoughts about how to document the heritage of this school?
Well, thankfully, there are a few individuals who are active on this page on Facebook. And from time to time, they are actually the glue that connects many of the old boys together. I recall two names. One guy was called Sydney C. I think he was a student from the 70s, late 60s, late 60s or early 70s. Somehow he sought me out when I was with the EDB to ask me to join the alumni. So that was how I got reconnected to the school. I gave up after a while that, I couldn't track any of my schoolmates anymore. So he was the key person, Sydney. And then another old boy is a gentleman called Ngui. These are some people who are actually, they are transparent to the side. You don't really see them, but they collect and they collate data of past years of graduates and all that. They try and connect one another, or facilitate meeting together. And so actually, I was just talking recently that we need to redefine what's the mission. I mean, Dunearn Technical was a school that became renowned in those days, not academically, but it was renowned to be a very good school for rugby matches. We produced one of the best rugby players, and much of the archives about rugby in the early years of the 60s, you'll find Dunearn in there. Of course, there were other sports, other track sports and other events as well. But the whole intent is really to look for some common denominators that many of us with an interest could come together and form them. Yeah. We tried with the teaching faculty. Unfortunately, not many of them, some of them have passed on. Not many of them are in a position to really help facilitate that because they are also in their 80s, late 70s or 80s. So, this whole thing about the digital age that we have today is not very helpful. Anyway, I think by and large, on a small basis, I think there's interest going on. The only thing is like how can we really catalyze this movement so that at least a lot of the history behind Dunearn Technical, and related to that, the industrialization of Singapore, particular the area, I think what's missing that you have shared with me, Kaseng, is that there's this portion of history which is missing, and you challenged me to redo my national service in my senior years by contributing to Chronicles of Old Singapore. And I think this is an excellent channel because really there are many of my other seniors that either have passed on. Many of them have through specific occasions can relive some of their history and can tell probably a vivid explanation, but that opportunity is slipping past fast. And so really it's getting students together, find an occasion that we can renew on common grounds and find a platform like yours to tell a story. I have on many occasions have to tell my other fellow students, with all the fake news and all the abuses going on, we have to take things with a simple faith. We do our due diligence. We find that a channel is good listening to, worth subscribing to. But the whole thing is really to be able to contribute back to our society, and that's why I'm excited about telling my story.
Yeah, absolutely right. And that's very well said. Hopefully, I mean, of course, the podcast is a way to get these memories across and to document the history of Singapore from the perspective of those who really were there and lived through it. And hopefully the members of those Facebook groups will appreciate what we talked about today and really engage with your memories, Charles. But also, I think we can actually, get some things done, beyond social media and, like organize. Why don't we organize some kind of get together where we can, record what's going on and just let people talk about what they did in the school and how the school meant to them. I attended one of these sessions, which was for poly students. It was for poly students and various cohorts, right? From the pioneer days to the more recent one, which means quite young people. They all came together, right? But they were all joined. They were all members of this society in this polytechnic, and they just shared their memories, and they have published a book as well. So something like this can be done. We can start as a small step, right? Just get together and have a very simple agenda. Let's just remember. Let's just recollect, one interesting story from those years. Because I think while it is quite common for classmates to arrange get-togethers, it is quite something else when you do it at a school level, right? It means that you're not just remembering your classes, your classmates, but the school has some meaning and value to you personally. Yeah, so
I fully agree, Kaseng. You talked about the know why and the know how earlier. My suggestion is that we all know why we need to be connected. Maybe really is the know how. So if through your channel and whatever writings you share, if there are some practical hints that could help many schools and old students to find a denominator to get together, bring closure. I think one of the challenges is that each of us have baggages of the past. So the key thing really is to find some way to come to these events, leaving the baggages on trees or at home, and just come to the events for the purpose of meeting for a greater good. And I think this could be an impetus for many of this history to be recorded again. I mean, one of the small little things that I try to get active is whenever I see a photo on archives, there's always this question: do you know anything about this photo? I would take the extra effort to respond to that question and give maybe the description of the process or the machines or the scenario or the place. And interestingly enough, it helps not just me, but people in the history or in the photo get connected again. Yeah. So I think it's an exciting world out there, guys. As you listen to my sharing and our sharing, it's really about growing together and growing gracefully together as we age. And we as a nation talk about kindness movement. I think this is something that we can lay the encourage the younger generations to move on with greater purpose in life. Yeah. And I just want to add up a grand finale. I'm so happy to be able to connect with my form teacher after 58 years, I believe.
What's the
I've
name?
not seen her. Janet Lam. She was known as Miss Janet Lam, my form teacher, also a literature teacher. She was an excellent teacher, very encouraging.
Wow.
And when I touched base with her, she said, "Oh, come on, don't tell me about my rookie years as a teacher." And yeah, so it's so interesting to be able to reach them and communicate with them again. Yeah. So thank you, teacher Kaseng. I think you have impacted many students in your early days at NJC. And just to quote one Dunearn Technical alumni student, he says he brought his son, who is freshly enrolled in NJC, up at Hillcrest at the hilltop. He brought his son to the school and relived his history by bringing the son around the school, telling him where the different locations, how special it meant to him. And I thought, wow, that's something that we can shoot for. Dunearn Tech guys out there, come on, share your memories with us because they are so precious.
Yeah, absolutely. School days are such a key part of our lives. We, as you said, Asian culture, we emphasize so much on education, and so much so that your little story tells that even school days is part of parenting. you know you don't let go of that. But there is a gap, I think, between the importance, including the memory of schools in our lives, in our well-being, in our sense of mental and emotional well-being, and the documentation and the recording of the oral histories of the schools that we attended. So I really want to see this as the start of a podcast series on schools in Singapore, including technical education. We mentioned earlier those two schools, Tanjong Katong and Queenstown, from an earlier decade in the 50s, right, when technical education was very much in its infancy. And if there's anyone out there who's listening in and wishes to talk about their memories of Queenstown and Tanjong Katong, please contact me. My email is below, and we'll have a conversation as rich as this one with Charles. So, Charles, we have completed successfully Dunearn Tech today, and we're gonna prepare, work a lot on the next series of podcasts, which will be Charles a bit older and doing what he loves best, to be in the field. Thank you very much, Charles, today for your sharing. Really, really enjoyed. The 2 hours has just flown by, right?
Well, it's my joy again. I don't want to overemphasize that if you are missing those high moments of your senior years, Kaseng is the go-to person that could make history alive again. Thank you.
Yeah, please contact me. And Charles, we will see ourselves on social media soon, in a couple of weeks maybe. Thank you very much, Charles. See you soon again.
Thank you.
We'll catch up
All right.
in person soon also. Yeah.
Yeah. Happy Chap Gourmet to all of you.
Bye, Charles.
Bye.